Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the Bowman's Best cards, the Bowman's Best football cards of the years 2000 and 2001. So Bowman's Best was in kind of a weird spot in 2000 because it was originally created as a high-end equivalent to Finest. But in that role, it kind of had its own path that it needed to go down, but being the high-end version of Finest meant that it was always kind of tied in to being Finest-like. And it ended up being kind of a frontier card design for Finest, where Finest would draw from what they did in Bowman's Best. But by the end of the decade, while Finest was kind of hanging on, but it needed to kind of figure out what it was going to be next, Bowman's Best was going down a slightly different path in terms of it needed to justify why it existed, period. And in the year 2000, Topps got kind of carried away with this idea of what are we going to do with card sets in the future, where innovation's never been Topps' strong suit. They do when they're pushed against the wall. They are able to make a really impressive idea. But when they're just kind of left to their own, they had Topps and they had Finest and they had Topps Chrome. And all three of those were really reliable brands that were just always going to be there for them. And they thought that Stadium Club kind of fit into that group. And Bowman was churning along pretty well as well. So they had their core at the center of their company. And then other brands would kind of appear and they would disappear. And they never really quite knew what to do with them. And so two brands were very much at the high end, Bowman's Best and Topps Gold Label, which by the year 2000, they became kind of not so much a cash cow as much as a cash opportunity with no future. And Topps Gold Label very much fell into that, where by 2000, they just kind of turned out a card that was really milking the reputation that the card brand had had in the previous 2 years. Bowman's Best kind of ended up in a similar situation where it was always built around 2 or 3 parallels, where it was really the parallels that drove the brand. But in 2000, they decided to reformulate it so that the main cards in the set were really the draw. And you can see from these cards that's the case because the cards, right off the bat, they're all refractors. This is the base level. Every single card is a refractor. It also has a textured surface, but it's not a relief texture, it's actually raised. So it has a very different feel. It's almost a rough feel in a way, which is kind of strange. And the card has a very firm kind of plasticky quality to it that both feels kind of cheap, but it also makes the card very intriguing. So the card, it has a feeling like a step down from what we'd had before, but at the same time, it almost was a step up in terms of card creation. The big problem, though, was the fact that the base brand of the card, or the base level of the card, was a refractor. And so while that was great for a base level card, it's still a base level card, and in being that, it automatically is kind of cheap on its own. So what could have been a great draw wasn't really a great draw. It's a card that you because Bowman's Best is supposed to be a really high brand, you expect a lot from it, and this doesn't quite fit that bill, which means it's easy to forget just how impressive these cards really are. And the card set does kind of follow what they've done in previous years, where they do have a subset called Best Performers. And this card set looks at 2 players on each card, and the card looks like it's supposed to be kind of a more difficult card to come by than the rest of the set, but it's a part of the 100 card base set. So it is actually the same as all the rest of the cards, it just seems like it's supposed to be special. But the rookies, those are more difficult to come by because every single card, it's designed the same way, refractor on the front, surface, all of that. But on the card back, each one of these cards is numbered out of 1499, which means that these cards are more rare and really were kind of the draw for this set, where it was about trying to find the more difficult rookie cards in the set, and then you pursue the rest of the set. But where I said that these cards are kind of like a parallel in their basic design, they did actually do a parallel for these cards, which is an acetate card. So the card is basically the same. For the most part, it's the same, except in the background is mostly see-through. But most significantly on the card back, these are all individually serial numbered out of 250, including the rookies. So while the base set has 100 cards and then it has a bunch of rookies that are harder to get, the parallel is across the entire span of the set. And every single card, all the way from card 1 to the last card, they are all individually serial numbered out of 250. So it's an equally difficult card set to get. And that was the card set for at the base level. But I do want to note something, which is that I rarely talk about promo cards. And the reason I don't really talk about promo cards is that that's not really a thing I care to get into. But every once in a while I feel the need to mention about a promo card because it might be confusing or whatever. And in this case, about this time, Topps tended to do these little card sets that were preview card sets for different releases. Bowman's Best was no different, and so there is a small card set of cards that look the same as the regular cards in the set, except they have different images. But the cards are all numbered BBP and then a number, which is Bowman's Best Preview. So those cards exist, and I don't know why I'm so picky about this particular group, but for me, it always feels like it's supposed to be a parallel or something special with the set, just because the way the cards look, because across the board, the 2000 Bowman's Best cards always look like they're more than they actually are, which is actually a good thing because it's great to have a base set that's just amazing. But as for the actual inserts, they only had one insert set that was a carryover from the traditions of the 90s, and that was Bowman's Best Bets. And Best Bets was never the die cut card. The die cut card, well, I shouldn't say it was never the die cut card, but it wasn't the card that was designed for die cutting. That was Best Cuts. But the Best Bets card here in this set is die cut up at the top with a really nice finial design. And that, coupled with the refractor surface and the deep rich colors, make these cards look really great. And even better, I think we can all agree that this design absolutely looks like a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, which I am 100% in support of. But I mentioned about the refractor. The reality is every single card in this entire release is a refractor, with one exception, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, so this card was die cut and had a refractor surface, but so too is the case with Franchise 2000. In this case, it's just die cut around the corners, so they're rounded off, kind of like a playing card. And then the inner surface of the card has a whole texture to it that makes the card really intriguing. I wish that the yellow lemon candy color for the card was not the color they went with, because on an individual basis, it's not bad. You put a couple of these together and it is overload in a heartbeat. But the card would work a lot better if the player didn't kind of disappear into the background. I wish he was stronger on the card. That's the only thing that I look at and I say, okay, that really needed to change. Otherwise, it is an overly bold, very neat card. And then they also did a set called Year by Year. And Year by Year was a set that Topps liked to do. Well, I should say it is based upon a theme of sets that Topps liked to do about this time, where they would do different cards, or they would do cards for different draft years where they show two players from the same draft year. So here for 2000 Bowman's Best, they had a set of horizontal cards with a refractor surface, obviously with two players from different drafts, and not entirely different drafts, but from various drafts. And then they did have two, or I guess I should say three more inserts, which veer away from this, and they start off with their jersey cards. And the Pro Bowl jersey cards, this is the card that's not refractor. And the reason it's not a refractor is because Topps was using this design across a number of different brands from 2000. So the whole Pro Bowl jersey card set came from different releases, and you got to look up at the logo in the top corner to see which particular release any particular card comes from. None of these are parallels. Every release has its section of the set, and in this case, this is the Bowman's Best card. But these cards basically all look the same, which is why this card doesn't look like it goes with the Bowman's Best, but it did come in these packs. Now, fortunately, the autographs were done specifically for each release, and that is why we have this really wonderful design here in this set, where this was before they did the little stickers for the autographs. This is an on-card auto, but because it's a refractor, that just makes it look really cool. I do wish that they'd done the faded box at the bottom a little bit differently so it integrated better into the card, but it doesn't matter because these are among the better, if not among the best autograph cards. Really a great piece of this collection. But they're not the only autographs they had, because they also had a small insert set, which is not really an insert set. It's 2 cards, but they used the same theme. The theme is Best of the Game. And this looks at the Rookie of the Year, Edgerrin James, and the MVP, which was Kurt Warner. So each one of these players got a card, and these cards are autographed. So the Edgerrin James card is autographed, and then the Kurt Warner card is autographed. 2 cards in this miniature set, but again, really cool looking autograph cards. So that was 2000, and the 2000 set, like I said, it was a card set that didn't quite know what it wanted to be and what it was going to be, but at least it looked amazing and it had a really wonderful quality to it, even if it can be difficult for some collectors to fully appreciate it. 2001, however, was the beginning of the next phase, or the last phase really, of Bowman's Best. And here in this case, Topps was trying to rethink the model, as everybody was in the early 2000s. The 90s was over, and now it was time to create whatever was going to be the future, and they were throwing all sorts of stuff out. And this is a card set that reminds me actually a lot of Topps' debut. There are a lot of similarities to it, starting with the fact that these seem really cheap. They just do. They're very thick, boxy cards, and the design aesthetic on the front is not very well crafted. It's all about the refractor, and it's also about the texturing. But that's it. It's not about the design, it's not about the image, it's certainly not about the background. The card is kind of lost, because when you look at this card you go, okay, but what's the parallel? And here's what's crazy. This is the Bowman's Best card set that didn't have a parallel. Why? I do not know. I absolutely don't know. But Topps was, in 2001, there was kind of a theme they were going with where they were trying to strip things back and focus on jerseys. And so the card sets weren't as well thought of because it wasn't really about selling cards, it was about selling jersey swatches. So unfortunately here with 2001 Bowman's Best, it doesn't have the same strength of what we'd seen in the past. Obviously, this goes with the Best Performers subset as well. These cards are done the same way as the previous year, so very much what you would expect. And then the rookies, likewise, are again done the same way. These cards are also numbered out of 1499, just like in 2000, but not all of them. The first section of rookies, the really high-end rookies, all of those cards come with a jersey swatch embedded in. What a shock! But these cards are all numbered out of 999, which means they're actually very common. So tracking down a Drew Brees or a Michael Vick or a LaDainian Tomlinson, that's actually not as hard as in other sets because the fact there are basically 1,000 of each of them. And so this is a card set that's actually a card set you could pursue, because what Topps was figuring would be the way of the future kind of was, but not to the same extent. And so that means when we look back at this card set, we don't get as excited about it as they wish that we did, because of the fact that, well, the big thing is jersey swatches, which are nice, but they're not the game changers we'd like to see. Now, they did do autographs, and the autographs, like in the previous year, they have a really good refractor surface. In fact, when I look at this card design, I look and I say, see, that's what the main set should have looked like. Then the cards would have been really cool. At least we got the autographs. They do look good. But this really is the highlight of this whole release, because when we get into the insert set, we're going to see that the inserts are, they're also a step back, starting with Bowman's Best. Now, Bowman's Best, once again, was doing die cutting. And the die cutting, I actually give him props for a creative idea that's really not that bad. It's a couple of playing cards, and up at the top, they are arrayed out, and so that's the die cutting on it, which is pretty cool. And I do give them full credit for the fact that they have a Royal Suite type card design where they have the player in his pro uniform up on top. These are all rookies, and then the image down at the bottom. I like the fact they did that swap. That's a really cool trick to these cards. They also have Impact, and with Impact, this is a card you're absolutely sure is a subset card because it looks more like a subset card than the subset cards. Player with the bursting out of the brick wall, the blue brick wall, interestingly, and that's kind of the design to it, but it is an insert set, and so it doesn't feel as exciting as you would expect for an insert set to be. Fortunately, Vintage Best is as exciting as you would want for these cards to be. But in this case, it's because of who's on the card, because these are legends. So there were not a lot of places where you saw legends in card sets, especially with Bowman's Best. We'd seen a few, but here was a whole card set that had some really impressive legends from over the years in the card set. So this is the one that really does kind of work well, simply because it's so fresh and new in terms of who is on these cards. And then they have their jersey inserts. And the jersey inserts, well, this is a very small card set that's really more akin to the best of the game cards, the 2 autograph cards from the previous year. Because these jerseys aren't a wide range of jerseys. They're very difficult to come by, very small set, and man, they look amazing. The cards are a refractor surface with the jersey swatches that are embedded in, but that whole football field and the rich colors and the way that all of the components on this card is designed makes you look at it and go, why aren't jersey cards, or why at this time weren't jersey cards more often designed like this? This almost has a 90s feel to it, and it has the richness of the standard by which 90s cards tended to be designed. It stands out very well, definitely the highlight across the board of the 2001 set, but so here's the thing, that's it. That's the problem with 2001, is that it didn't do any of the awesome stuff that 2000 did. We would in 2002 see them finally getting into parallels and really trying to earn their keep moving forward. All based off of the design of 2001, but 2001 is the sleepy stop in the middle. It's a card that really doesn't know what it wants to be because it clearly has not really thought out what it's going to be, which is too bad. But at least the 2000 set is a very, very impressive card set. So I'm going to look at 2002 and on in another video or two. We'll see how many videos it takes for those, because they do start to get kind of crazy toward the end of their existence, but we're not that far away from the end of Bowman's Best, which is unfortunate. But this is that interim period between the 90s and the end days of Bowman's Best, where you get to see some rethinking of the whole model. And there are some really nice cards in these. So I do want to thank you for watching the video. Now, if you haven't subscribed, please be sure to do so. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.